You're listening to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to yet another exciting episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. I am excited because I do have a very special guest that I'm going to bring on the show. As you know, here in the Fountain City, we just had our 95th Southeast Amateur Golf Championship at the Country Club of Columbus. So I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on the Sports Beat, because I actually got an email from him a couple of weeks ago. As you know, as a member of the media, I'm on that distro for the media, so I'm privileged to welcome to the Sports Beat Brian Stubbs, who is the executive director of the Haskins Foundation. Brian, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on the show, and we appreciate your support and you following the Southeastern Amateur.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about that. A great event. It was the 95th annual. And we had a Frenchman win it for the first time. Alexander Vandermooten won it with a -7, shot a 63 on that first day. A very unique tournament. It's a 3-day tournament that starts on Thursday at the Country Club of Columbus and wraps up on Saturday. We had Luke Dasher from Macon that finished with a 6 under. And then from Dothan, Brantley Scott with a 6 under. Just a great overall tournament. But before we talk about the tournament, just talk a little bit about your golf background. Where are you from, and how long you've been involved as the executive director of the Haskins Foundation?
Well, I grew up in Atlanta, just outside Atlanta in Douglasville, west of Atlanta, and grew up playing golf. My father taught me to play golf at a pretty young age, and played some pretty dismal college golf at a small college in Northwest Georgia, Berry College, and then wanted to stay in golf. And so I got into the golf business and became an assistant professional at Coosa Country Club in Rome, and went from there to Atlanta Country Club in Atlanta, former site of the Bell South Classic on the PGA Tour. And then in 2002, had an opportunity to come to Columbus, to the Country Club of Columbus, to be the head golf professional. The club was going through a golf course renovation, really the first renovation that had happened since 1970 or 1971, and was really excited to come. I'm certainly a fan of the golden age of architecture. The Country Club of Columbus is a Donald Ross design. It was lovingly restored by Drew Rogers in 2002. And so been excited. My family and I have been here in Columbus since 2002. And when you're at the Country Club of Columbus, the Southeastern Amateur is a big part of what we do.
And some of the local talent that has been a part of the Amateur Southeast Championship. Bo Blanchard also shot a -2. He is from Columbus, Georgia. So Ben Carr won the championship in 2019 and 2021, the former Columbus Blue Devil that went on to play in the Masters a couple of years ago, and he got his PGA card. I do want to talk about golf in Columbus, because I think it really starts with, even before Larry Mize called Columbus home. He won the Masters in 1987. Who can not forget of that incredible shot, and then the 3 playoff with Steve Ballesteros and Greg Norman. Drew a blank there, but yeah, it was a great Masters. He wins the green jacket in 1987. And how important is Larry Mize just building up golf, not just in the Country Club of Columbus, but you have the golf course at Green Island. You have Red Bull. You have fantastic. You have Bull Creek. Butchered that one. You have Bull Creek over there in Midland. How important is just the impact that Larry Mize had on golf here in Columbus?
Well, he's certainly known all over the world for the chip in on 11 at Augusta National, from an impossible spot to the right of the green to beat Greg Norman in 1987. But I think oftentimes he doesn't get enough credit for the career that he had. He won multiple times on the PGA Tour, won multiple times in Japan, has had a very successful career on the PGA Tour Champions. And so there's no question that generations of players like myself, even though I didn't grow up in Columbus, generations of players have looked up to Larry Mize for his golf accomplishments. What I think his lasting legacy will be, at least in Columbus, is not only the quality of play, but really the quality of person that he is. If you spend any time with Larry Mize, and I've been fortunate to get to spend some time with him through the years, I've said this to many people, he is a much better person than he is a player. And we all know what a celebrated and accomplished player. So Larry has been very much a mentor to people like Russell Henley, to Ben Carr, to Stanton Shore, who won multiple Southeastern amateurs, played his collegiate golf at Mercer, went on to play what is now called the Americas Tour. Larry's been involved with Georgia Golf Hall of Famers. He is a Georgia Golf Hall of Fame member himself, but guys like Carter Mize and Wright Waddell of that generation that he was an inspiration to. So, Larry's impact, I think he inspired a lot of players to get into golf. Where Larry has been the most beneficial, I think, is the way he's carried himself, the way he's conducted himself, his professionalism, the way he treats people, the way he's diligent about his craft. And he's shared that. He has spent a lot of time with Russell Henley over the last couple of years. I certainly like to think that Larry's impact on Russell is part of what has helped Russell to get to be, as we were talking earlier, a top 30 player in the world. And I think Larry, it's from the way he carries himself, his values. He very much likes to mentor younger players, and he's such an unbelievable example of how to play at a very high level, but how to do it in the most professional manner. And he's been a tremendous influence on golf in Columbus.
Well, I do want to talk about Russell Henley because he is from Macon, but he calls Columbus home. And, he's been on the PGA Tour since 2011, but he got on the world stage in 2023, because I remember on Sunday he was in contention at the Masters, and he did finish tied for fourth, best finish ever in a major, and it really put Russell Henley, in that stratosphere of a top 50 player. Had a great year. I mean, I'm looking at his accolades. In 2024, he was tied for 7th at the U.S. Open, and he was in 5th place at the Open Championship. And Russell Henley, he's just going to continue to get better. I mean, he's 35 years old. We know that the impact that Russell Henley is going to make on the PGA Tour, but also he gives back to the community. How important is Russell Henley's impact on golf in Columbus, as he does call Columbus home, and he's usually out spotted helping in the community and really just having that impact on golfers that want to try to do it the right way and get to the PGA Tour.
Russell and Larry, I think, share a lot of the same personality traits. Russell is a very humble person, just like Larry Mize is. Russell loves to help other people. He's a quiet, I don't know if unassuming is a fair statement, but he is a quiet, very humble gentleman, and he's an absolute blessing to be around. And Russell spends a lot of time at the Country Club of Columbus. He spends a lot of time at Green Island. He's very involved in the community. I get to see him. My office is at Country Club of Columbus, so I see Russell a good bit when he's home. And the time that he spends with junior golfers, whether they're the best players, kids that are just getting started in the game, or whether it's adult and ladies, Russell always has time for people, loves to chat with them and talk with them and share his experiences, and I think and inspire. And he does it in a very Larry Mize way. He does it in such a he really makes you feel valued and listened to when you're talking to you. When you talk to Larry Mize or you talk to Russell Henley, you would not know that they were two of the best players in the world, and that one of them had won a major championship and Russell is standing on the doorstep of winning a major. You just wouldn't know that from being around them. They are the most humble, down-to-earth, wonderful people. And that sets such a great example for these young players who want to mimic them and want to have the same kind of success they do.
All right, and finally, let's talk about Ben Carr. He won the Southeast Region Championship in 2019 and 2021. The former Columbus Blue Devil went on to play collegiate golf at Georgia Southern. He has the spotlight a couple of years ago when he won the amateur championship and he got an invitation to play in the Masters. He turned pro in 2023, and I think he's young enough, like if he just continues in the matches, he's going to continue climbing up the golf rankings and get invitations to the U.S. Open and the Open Championship. And really, what future do you see for Ben Carr in the PGA Tour? I mean, he's a young golfer, but, he's had some accolades. He's been in the spotlight. He knows how to win in the big stage, winning the amateur championship and also winning the Southeast Championship twice.
Well, I'm just a quick correction. He finished runner-up in the U.S. Amateur, so he did lose in the finals.
Okay, so he did get that bid to the Masters. Okay, thank you.
Both the winner and the runner-up in the U.S. Amateur get into the Masters, and so Ben was very fortunate to do that, and he played very well in that U.S. Amateur at two very difficult golf courses, primarily at Ridgewood Country Club, which is very much a U.S. Open-style golf course. I think it's sort of like I'm kicking a dead horse, but Ben benefited from growing up around Larry Mize and around Russell Henley and seeing their work ethic, the way they conducted themselves, getting a real understanding of what does it take to be a great player. All of us want to, if you play golf or any sport for that matter, we all want to play well. I don't think most athletes don't lack the willingness. It's the effort and the commitment and the dedication. And when you ask about the ceiling for Ben, or where do you see Ben going from here? Ben is a very talented player. He has a very important intangible, which is he's not afraid to go low. He does not get nervous if he gets 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 under par in a golf tournament. That he thrives on that. And I think that it takes that type of controlled aggressiveness to be successful at the PGA Tour in the highest levels. And Ben has demonstrated that not only the Southeastern Amateur, but in his time, he played very well in the PGA Tour Korn Ferry event in Savannah early in the spring, and has played well on the Americas Tour. And that's a challenging setup. You're going to start in South America and basically play your way all the way up to Canada during the summer. A lot of travel, playing different kinds of golf courses. He's getting great experience. He's continuing to play well. Ben's work ethic, I think his attitude, his mental strength, he's a very mentally strong player. He's worked very hard on that. It's something that I know that Russell and Larry both have helped him with a great deal, because at that level, everybody can play. They're all good ball strikers. They're all good putters. Really what separates the best amateur players and professional players are the players that are the strongest mentally, the ones that can, mentally work themselves around the golf course. How can you play well when you don't have your best stuff? You're not going to play great every week. In fact, you're probably not going to play great an entire round very often. So how do you manage not having your best stuff? How do you get yourself around the golf course and give yourself a chance to stay in contention? And Ben is learning that and has demonstrated that a lot. So I think as he continues to get experience on the Americas Tour, he's going to get some chances at some Korn Ferry events. And we laugh about this from a college golf perspective anyway, that you're really just trying to catch lightning in a bottle 1 week. You referenced Russell. This is unfair to Russell, but you referenced the U.S. Open a few years ago when Russell finished 4th. It was kind of a coming out party. That's a little unfair to Russell, but for a lot of the golf world, this was kind of Russell's coming out party. And what you've seen since then is that he's proven he can play at that level, and he's played at that level really since that time. And so I look for the same things out of Ben. I think Ben, as I said before, his mental toughness, his work ethic, he's not afraid to go low, and he understands what it takes to play at the highest level.
And by the way, Ben Carr has the tournament course record with a 61. He shot that back in 2019 when he won the Southeastern Amateur Championship for his first time, and then went on to win it in 2021. All right, let's switch gears, Brian, and let's talk a little bit about the Haskins Foundation. You are the executive director. What is the Haskins Foundation? How to get started, and what does it do?
Well, the Haskins Foundation started in 1971, and it was originally called the Haskins Commission. And so let me take you back a little before 1971. So in 1922, Fred Haskins comes from East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta, where he was working with Stuart Maiden at East Lake and building golf clubs for Bobby Jones, and became a good friend of Bobby Jones. And Country Club of Columbus decided they wanted to hire their first golf professional. So they brought Fred Haskins to Columbus in 1922. And Mr. Haskins was a phenomenal teacher. He was a photographer. He was really ahead of his time in terms of using photography in his teaching, and he was a club maker, and he loved tournament golf. And so he started the Southeastern Amateur in 1922. Well, if you fast forward to 1970, at that time in the Columbus area, it started in Columbus and then moved up to Callaway Gardens. There was a college tournament called the Dixie Intercollegiate, and back in those days, all the schools played against each other. So you had Power 5 Division I programs that were playing against Columbus College at the time. So it wasn't just Division I playing against Division I. And in 1970, there was a player named Lanny Watkins who had an unbelievable college year. And he came to the Dixie Intercollegiate towards the end of the season. And the tournament organizers were talking about the year that Lanny was having and really the career he had had. And they said, why is there no Heisman Trophy for college golf? Why is there not an award to recognize the most outstanding collegiate player? And so that started this discussion that culminated with the Haskins Award. So a group of gentlemen, Billy and Jack Key, legends in golf in Georgia and in Columbus, Georgia specifically, both in the Georgia Golf Hall of Fame, both very successful Southeastern Amateur champions, State Amateur champions, Southern Amateur champions. They said, nobody gets to this kind of position in the game by yourself. And so they felt it was fitting to name the award after Fred Haskins, who was a teacher. That was his first love. He loved to teach the game of golf. And so starting in 1971, the Haskins Award was created. And what makes the Haskins Award really unique is, number one, it's the oldest college golf award, individual college golf award. But more importantly and truly visionary was the way it is determined is by a vote of players and coaches. And that was, to this day, it's still the only college golf award that's voted on by players and coaches. So the Haskins Commission has administered, if that's the right word, we've managed the voting and the promotion of the award since 1971. And in 2014, we met with Annika Sorenstam, the greatest female player of all time. And we wanted to add a female award because there was not a companion award to the Haskins Award on the women's side of the game. And so we created the Annika Award in 2014, and it is modeled just right after the Haskins. So players and coaches vote on the award, a limited amount of specific college golf media votes on that and past winners. And so that's been the mission of the Haskins Foundation. We had a name change in 2021 to better fit where we've become and what we are now. And so it's very exciting. So I spend about 25 to 30 weeks on the road visiting men's and women's college golf events, from the 1st of September all the way through the end of June. We certainly go to the NCAA championships, which is where we present the Haskins and Annika Awards at the end of stroke play for both of those championships.
Brian, and my final question to you is, what makes the Country Club of Columbus such a special golf course? What is unique about this golf course? I mean, we do have very good golf courses in Columbus. You mentioned the one at Green Island. I mean, we got Bull Creek. I mean, we got Oxbow. We've got the Follow Me course down at Fort Moore. But what are some of the unique features for the Country Club of Columbus?
Well, I'm the most biased person that you're ever going to ask this question to. So let me start there and tell you that I have a love for the Country Club of Columbus that's probably not healthy, let's be honest. But I have a great love for Golden Age architecture, which Donald Ross was really one of the preeminent architects from about 1910 to about 1940. He developed, he built Pinehurst No. 2, which he's most famous for, and Ross designed hundreds of golf courses all over the country. But Donald Ross came to Columbus at the behest of Fred Haskins in 1923 to redesign the golf course, because at that time The golf course was only 12 holes. It's in its current location, but it was 12 holes from 1909 to 1922. And Donald Ross was brought in to extend the golf course to 18 holes to get ready for the 1925 Georgia Amateur Championship. So we're blessed, first of all, to have one of the greatest golf architects to share his wisdom and his creativity on a wonderful piece of ground. And I think one common trait to all great golf courses is they have a great piece of ground. And the Country Club of Columbus is blessed to have, a fantastic piece of ground to work from. And Donald Ross did a lot of the things that you see at Pinehurst and places that you see in other parts of the country. He has a square green, which is a little bit unusual, by architectural standards. And so the golf course, while it's relatively short, it's about 6,500 yards all the way back. The greens are small, which really puts a premium on short game. It's one of the reasons why Russell Henley and Larry Mize like to practice at the club, because it requires you to hit all kinds of different short game shots, and that translates very well on the PGA Tour. The length does not, but the shots that you're being asked to play around the greens match up with what you're faced with, whether you're at the Open Championship or the Masters. So it's a place that's held on to tradition. It's a place that's, that has seen so many great championships and so many great players. Most, if not all, of the great players that have grown up and played golf in Georgia have played the Country Club of Columbus. And that's just something you can't buy. You can't create it. It just takes time. But I don't think if it was not for Fred Haskins and Donald Ross, I don't know if we'd be having that conversation 15 years later.
Well, Brian, I'm excited about this conversation about golf in Columbus. I cannot wait for the 96th Southeastern Amateur that is going to be held next year at the Country Club of Columbus. And thank you so much for joining the Sports Beat.
Always great to talk about golf in Columbus. Thank you.
All right, that is Brian Stubbs. He is the Executive Director of the Haskins Foundation. Thank you, everybody, for watching yet another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.